and nobody walks away and go, God, that Rahm is subtle. I couldn't figure out what his position was. I'll tell you my position whether you ask me a question.
Whether you like it or not.
And whether you like it or not. But I'm going to tell you what I think it takes to win.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I'm 6 for 6, never lost.
Rahm Emanuel has lived just about every chapter of modern Democratic politics. From a bare-knuckle political operative to a congressman to a chief of staff to a historic president to mayor of one of America's greatest cities to representing this country on the world stage. Depending on who you ask, Rahm is either the embodiment of political toughness or the face of everything people want to change about politics. But here's what I want to do today. Not just debate Rahm Emanuel. I want to understand him. Where that edge comes from, what shaped it, and whether the future he's talking about for this party is one Democrats are ready to embrace. Rahm Emanuel, my good friend, welcome to At Our Table.
Thank you, Jamie.
It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you.
It's good to have you in South Carolina. Now, have you ever been in South Carolina before?
Of course I've been in South Carolina before.
When did you come to South Carolina?
Well, first of all, I don't call you when I come. Second of all, I've been here on your coast. I've been here for different conferences.
Yeah.
I've been here when the mayor's conference was here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
different roles.
Yeah, different roles. Well,
and also when I was also chair of the DCCC and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Jim Clyburn did some stuff. John Spratt did some stuff.
Oh, God, I miss Mr. Spratt so much. I miss him so much. Well, it's great to have you back in the Palmetto State.
Yeah.
And I know you're visiting. We get a lot of visitors in the Palmetto State.
Yeah, we are us Democrats up north are 50% of your hotel sales tax.
Well, it's good to have you here. It's good to have you on the pod. I want to start off because I don't think, a lot of people know the reputation of Rahm Emanuel, but I really want people to know who is Rahm Emanuel really. So, you built this reputation as this tough, hard-charging figure in American politics. Is that who you really are, or is that the version people see because of the jobs that you've had in politics?
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, the yes part is you have 10 million kids not insured with health care.
Yep.
President Clinton says, we're going to take on the insurance companies, get it done. I get here's the bat. You got to get this done. Yeah.
Yeah.
I beat them. When it came to financial regulation, beat them. When it came to, I'll give you health care, beat them. When it came to first place anywhere in the country to sue the pharmaceuticals over opiates, city of Chicago has mayor. So nobody who's ever gotten in the ring with me, they didn't walk out with a broken nose. From the Republicans to all the special interests. 10 million kids now have health care.
Yeah.
So at one level, it's part of the assignment you had. But as everybody will tell you also, like as mayor, I took on a Republican governor who said, no, every mayor before me try to rewrite the school funding formula to give kids in the city of Chicago equal shot.
Yeah.
As I always say, Chicago kids are second-class citizens in the state of Illinois. I made a Republican governor sign a $600 million more for the city of Chicago. We did universal pre-K, universal kindergarten, free community college if you got to be average. And I walked in, Chicago public schools were called by William Bennett the worst in America. When I walked out, Sean Reardon at Stanford called it the single best system of the top 100. Our graduation rate went from 56 to 83%. Wow. 67% of our kids went to college. Now, I joke, I was at one time 6'4" and 250 pounds. I'm now 148, different wet. But yeah, but I'm not toughness to be tough.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. I get to Congress, we're in the minority.
Yeah.
I introduce the Great Lakes Restoration Act. I get every Democrat, Republican in Congress from the Great Lakes states to sign on to it. My job is to take back the House for the Democrats and beat the Republicans. And while I'm doing that job, I convince President Bush to sign I get it passed in the House, I get it passed in the Senate in the minority, and I get President Bush to sign it. So, am I tough? Yeah, to get things done. Breaking news, ready?
Yeah.
Tough times require a tough leader to do tough things. So.
Oh, amen to that.
Yeah. Now, my kids will tell you.
You're a little softy.
Well, if I start talking about them, if I start talking about my father,
Yeah.
in the way that I know how you feel about your grandmother,
Yeah.
and if I talk about my grandfather, it takes about 10 seconds before tears happen.
Yeah.
So I have a soft spot.
Yeah.
But don't tell anybody, Jamie. What's said here on this podcast stays.
Well, I want to spend some time talking about your family because you also, I mean, you're not the only famous Emmanuel, right? You have two brothers. You're the middle child, right?
As I joke, middle children wrote a book, War or Peace. We could do either one.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about you growing up in that household, because you have one brother who's your older brother, right? Who is an oncologist. He teaches
at UPenn.
At UPenn. You have another brother who is like Hollywood. I mean, when you think
and he thinks he's Hollywood.
Yes, when you think of Hollywood, you think of Ari.
Yeah.
The super agent and just everything Hollywood. And then you are the politician. You are the statesman.
I like this. Let's dress this up. Public servant.
Public servant. I love that. I love that. So take us into sitting at the dinner table.
No, so before you get there, you got to pull all the way back.
Yeah.
Because a little history. One is Dad comes to America. He's a pediatrician. Barely can speak English.
From where?
He comes from Israel.
Yeah.
He does his residency here in Chicago. Mom's a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
They met 1 week, date, they get married.
Wow. After 1 week.
As I joked when my dad passed away at the funeral, I said they were married for 64 years and argued for all 67 of them. But Dad, starting a medical practice in the city, 1962, sues the city of Chicago for lead in household paint. Not exactly the business model for setting up your pediatric practice when you got to feed 3 kids, 3 boys who can eat a lot.
Yeah.
Mom is not only a nurse, but she leads in Chicago Congress on Racial Equality, and does all the integration of housing and beaches in Chicago. And they want to talk to her about being an alderman and she's fighting Richard J. Daley every day.
Wow.
So a little turn when her son becomes mayor. So, and then on top of that, at the dinner table and my mother was adamant. Every night we had family, even on their Sabbath dinner. If somebody had a soccer game like I did or something, the dinner did not happen until everybody was at the table.
Wow.
And so we had dinner all the time. Anyway, Grandpa and Grandma on my mother's side live with us, as does, when I'm young, my dad's mother. So it was never, quote unquote, the nuclear family. My mother required, and I wrote about this myself we replicated, there would be no rectangular table. It would only be round. And the reason was there will be no head of the table. Everybody was required to speak as an equal. Now, you got knives and forks flying, people talking with their mom. It is I'll tell you what, so I'm dating Amy. She comes to a family dinner, and she goes, "Why are you and Ari arguing?" I said, "We're not arguing." She goes, "No, you were yelling at each other." I said, "No, that's how we talk." Wait. It was literally the Gladiators. And
at the dinner table.
And you were required to, starting in 3rd grade, you were required to know something that was in the news that you wanted to talk about. You could not come to the table. So it was not just about politics. You want to have a fight?
Yeah.
Ask an Emanuel Roy about the movie Deer Hunter. That's gone on for 25 years. We don't even talk about it because it leads to violence. Okay? So that's just how, but then pull back down in the family room.
Uh-huh.
In the middle of the wall is a little red purse. That purse carried my mother's mother, my grandmother's passport, and my 2 great aunts, her sisters, their passports to America. We had framed the purse and the passports. On either side, Jamie, of that framed picture, or framed purse and passports from 1914, were the relatives of my father on the left and my mother on the right. Gray, black and white photos. of relatives who never made it to this country. And there's, as you, like your family, nothing subtle.
No,
There was, you were
no.
hit, and 28 eyeballs would look at you. And it was my parents' way of making sure we knew that we won the lottery of life. And you are not to waste this time. You are not to be frivolous with this gift called America. And so, we talk Ari's Hollywood. Truth is, he's in the entertainment space, et cetera, giving something.
Yeah.
Ezekiel, with the same way towards public health while he's an oncologist about how to make people healthier, live better lives, et cetera. Mine. So the family was imbued with this sense of giving something back. And everybody pursued their career. Now, each of the two brothers think they could do the other brother's
Job.
better, much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of advice from them?
Yes, which I summarily put them on block, so they can't reach me. No, I do. They get, we share. We have not only Ari, Zeke, and I, but all the cousins are on one text exchange, and somebody reads an article, boom, you got to send it, and we argue through the text all the time. So it's this. So it is very competitive.
A lot of F-bombs?
I would be less than honest if I said, but here's the thing: we're competitive. We're like 12-year-olds trying to kill each other all the time. You say one bad thing, somebody outside the network, about one brother, and you have the entire Emanuel army at your front door. So that's how it is, and that's how we grew up, and mom and dad would expect nothing less.
Well, you know what? That I think in a lot of families, particularly in the family that I grew up in, I mean, we would fight like cats and dogs, but again, don't let anybody down the street say some sideways shit. And then
I didn't say this. I did not say that. But that's the rules. There's a loyalty.
Yes.
And everybody takes care of everybody. But so that was but mom and dad wanted, and grandpa particularly, so my grandfather, classic story, 1914, comes to Chicago, 14 years old, not a bucket to spit in, window to throw it on, starts driving a taxi as a 15-year-old because he was this big man. He was a boxer, meat cutter, lied, works on Maxwell Street, steel, metal, meat cutter. He was a socialist that became a Roosevelt Democrat. And if you broke from the Democratic Party, you were excommunicated. That simple. And I remember this famous 1968, I mean, it's a violent argument on a Sabbath dinner between my mother and my grandfather. It was so violent. Dad took us, the three boys, out of the house for a walk.
Wow.
On Winona and Broadway in Chicago. And they were arguing about Wallace. Now, who do you think it is? They weren't arguing about George Wallace. Grandpa was furious that Henry Wallace broke from the Democratic Party and challenged Truman in 48. My mother was supportive of Henry Wallace. And in 1968, 20 years later,
they're still fighting.
They're not fighting. I mean, we had to call the police. It was a 911 situation at the Emanuel house. It was, they're screaming at it. And Grandpa, once Roosevelt, that was it. So I always said, being a Democrat's one of the 10 lost tribes.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was
no choices.
So when did you, growing up in that household, when did you decide that public service was going to be your thing?
So 1976, in Skokie, Illinois, largest concentration in the world, in America, of Holocaust survivors. Yeah. The Nazis of the USA petitioned to protest. Court blocks them. Prior to that, I'm doing everything mom and dad want me to do in politics. Door to door for Ab Mikvah. I'm 16, and I say to my father, just because they're not going to be in Skokie, but they're going to be in Marquette Park, which has its own history, Dr. King's March in Chicago, etc. I said, we have to go down there and confront them. And my dad, nope, we're not doing it. It's going to be violent, which he's not wrong about. I said, Dad, just because their hatred is not next door does not mean you do not confront hatred. And we're screaming at each other. So my dad says, you're a schmuck, hits me on the back of the head, grabs the keys and said, okay, let's go down there and march. And that was the first time I took out of my own volition, didn't do what my mom and dad assigned me.
Yeah.
At 16, Now it gets hairy. We're down in Marquette Park. There's 4,000 both neo-Nazis and empathizers with the Nazis. The Chicago police lead 14 of us who are there to protest. Skinny little kid me. And they lead us into the middle of the 4,000 and walk away.
Wow.
And I don't think that's what kind of, okay, I'm going to go public service. But that was the first time I wasn't taking orders from or direction from my parents, not orders, but direction. And that's the first time, to my dad's credit, he told me no. I said, I'm doing this. And then he hit you on the back of the head and he said, you're a schmuck, which meant he loved you.
Mm-hmm.
And he grabbed the keys and said, let's go. So that was it. And then I worked for a group in college, a summer internship called Common Cause.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, you know what? This is what I like doing. This is where, and every graduation speaker, oh, find your passion, don't, like you're not supposed to worry about, raising a family or just find but that was my passion. And then that's what sets me off. Yeah.
And then how did you get involved in the Clinton administration?
Okay. So I'm working for Illinois Public Action Council.
Yeah.
Ready? Like nothing ever changes in life. Fighting the utility companies on rates.
Yeah. Yep.
What goes around comes around.
It does.
Stay in Chicago politics, etc. When I'm at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee as a staffer, there's a chairman of the committee is Congressman Burl Anthony from Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
And we used to go recruiting. We would stop in Arkansas, and I got to meet this guy called Governor Bill Clinton. Next, we don't talk to each other, don't see each other, whatever, but that was Bill Clinton comes up to Chicago to support Vince Lane, the head of Chicago Housing Authority, when Vince is putting police inside Robert Taylor homes, Cabrini Green, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And we reconnect. And he's the keynote at the Illinois Democratic Party dinner. And he pulled me aside afterwards. He said, I'm going to run for president. I'd like you to help me. And I thought, remember, you got to go back. Carter loses, Mondale loses, Dukakis loses. And I knew then that somebody like of him,
yep,
message-wise, culturally, etc., was the only way back out of back to the promised land. And so I moved down October 1991 into the paint store, 5 of us, 7 of us, as we call the original paint store crew before we moved uptown to the old post office. And
so you moved to Arkansas?
Yeah, I lived for a year in Little Rock.
I can't imagine Rahm Emanuel in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Well, let me say this. Nor can the people of Little Rock. Or as Skip Rutherford used to say, not since Sherman took Atlanta have we seen something like this. So if I lived in Little Rock for a year, Amy and I kept dating because we met 6 months beforehand. And but it really goes down back to Congressman Burl Anthony and the DCCC, and then Bill Clinton doing some stuff in Chicago, and we kind of exposed, and I became his national finance director.
One of the things, it's just amazing how it's those little moments.
Oh, people forget, you cannot plan this stuff.
No, you can't.
You cannot, and I moved to Little Rock. One is I said I wanted to do a presidential, work for a presidential campaign. I was single, and I knew that if I got married, etc., it would become much harder. B, I thought and those times in 1991, there's Mario Cuomo, Bill Bradley, all of Washington with the staff.
Yeah.
And at best, because remember, in 1988, Clinton does this horrible speech at the convention, the 6 hours.
It was so long.
Yeah. And he was at 2%. My mom and dad thought I had lost my mind, and I just thought. And I told Amy, who we had just been starting to date, oh, this will be over in 6 months. After Illinois, I said, oh, it'll be over in 6 months. Yeah, and it's a little, if I had not worked for Burl Anthony, there was a different, would our paths cross? Maybe. Maybe not. Probably more not than yes.
Yeah.
It's little, you are 100%, as my son just left, full-time Navy intel officer. He's now Navy Reserve. He's working on a campaign. I said, look, man, you're going to meet people along the way.
That's exactly right.
And it will, 2 years later, you won't know, and you'll hit the lottery on it.
It's those moments that are so precious. And I say this to young people all the time. take advantage of those internships. And when you do those things, meet as many people as you can. And when you do, be the best at what you do.
Yeah.
Because people are watching you, people are looking at you, they're paying attention, and they're seeing how you operate, even when you don't even know it yourself.
I agree 100%. The other thing I tell people, I just told political class up at
Was it
Wofford.
Wofford?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The young man asked me, what would you do? I said, whatever you do, don't go to the shiny bauble called Washington. If he's from Nashville, I said, but if South Carolina is your home, or Tennessee, he said Tennessee and Nashville, I said, go home. Build a political base.
Mm-hmm.
Prove yourself locally. Don't try to be a small fish in a big pond. Be a big fish in a little pond. And I remember when I left college, go to Washington, go. I went home to Chicago. Smartest decision I made.
Mm.
Build your political base in your place you call home, and you'll be amazed what happens with that.
It's really important. I want to talk a little bit about your identity and your faith and your perception of the world. So,
I don't know if you know this. It's messed up.
way messed up. So I know your faith is really important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you just told a story about, the hatred that the Jewish Americans have faced here. And, the neo-Nazis that were there in your childhood are still around, and they're still pushing all of these things. First I want to talk a little bit in terms of the Israel-Palestine issue. As a Jewish Democrat, as someone who also served as a diplomat, you were our ambassador to Japan. How do you process what's happening right now in Israel and Gaza, and also all of it's just like myriad of feelings within the Democratic Party?
Let me get to one subject that tangentially.
Yes, go right ahead.
Because when I met with Governor Hodges, did something about meet and greet. Two people asked me, I said, as it relates to my faith, can the Democratic Party nominate a Jew?
Yeah.
And I say yes. Two things. One, my faith's not your problem. That's between me and my rabbi. The faith you got to worry about is that the American people have lost faith in America. And that's our project together.
Yes.
And we got to worry about the bigger faith. My rabbi doesn't think I'm a very good Jew. I got to work on it. I mean, that's both it's funny and serious. But my faith is not it's not the problem we got.
Yes.
Okay. And two, I'd say this in Jaime on politics. I get elected to Congress. Chicago's pretty kind of what church you go to. Except my predecessors in the 5th District are Dan Rostenkowski, Roman Puchinski, Frank Annunzio, Mike Flanagan, Rob Blagojevich, Rahm Emanuel. Okay, which one doesn't fit in that thing? Okay, so people didn't look at my faith.
Yeah.
They looked at my character.
Yeah.
And that's also true. And I'll give you one other example. I'm an ambassador in Japan. Somebody sprayed paint our fence with neo-Nazi signs.
In Japan?
No, in Chicago.
Oh, in Chicago.
Michigan.
Yeah.
We have a cottage. And unbeknownst to me, next day, some neighbor just cleans it all up.
Wow.
So have I seen hatred? Yeah. Have I seen the goodness of people? Yeah. Okay. So, and there was an ugly part of the congressional race, very ugly, anti-Semitic, publicly said.
Yep.
And I said then, I know the people of this community. I've been on the front stoop. They know right from wrong, and they know good from bad. I have absolute confidence they reject this ugliness. And that's exactly what happened. So I have seen the goodness, and I've seen the ugliness.
Yep.
Now, to the question about Israel and the Palestinian people and their right to a homeland.
Yeah.
Two things that I think are important. One, 2009, Prime Minister Netanyahu publicly, because of a big argument we're having about housing in the West Bank, publicly calls me a self-hating, self-loathing Jew.
Wow. I don't remember that.
He calls me an Axelrod. Axelrod upset all the time now that nobody remembers he was part of that. And this was over because I worked for President Clinton on the Y Plantation, the Oslo Accords, agreements with Jordan on peace. And I knew then in 2009 that if you keep doing what you're doing on this housing, you're going to destroy any chance for peace.
Yes.
And we go right, to the point that Obama has to separate us. We're at it. Like you're back at the Emanuel dinner table. I'm at it, and because I knew, unlike other people, I didn't need to wait for a war.
Yeah.
I knew in 2009, and I told it to his face, to the point that he publicly calls me. It's all over the self-hating Jew in his book, his own book.
He goes at you.
He goes right at me. So, look, if you don't have peace, you got perpetual war.
Yep.
The Palestinian people deserve a homeland, and the Jewish people deserve to live with security.
Yeah.
Now, some in the Palestinian community chant a river to the sea. That ain't happening. There are others in Israel who chant a greater Israel. They're heads and tails of the same coin, and they're both extremes are going to lead people into continuous, nonstop war. Israel's tried three things in the last 40 years. They negotiated with Egypt, peace, stood the test of time. Negotiated peace with Jordan, stood the test of time. Negotiated the Abraham Accords, peace, stood the test of time. In Lebanon and in Gaza, they unilaterally leave, and you get Hezbollah, Hamas. Failed. They've tried divorce with a wall in the West Bank. Failed. The only thing that's worked for Israel is working with a partner that can ensure their security and the dignity of peace. One of the most powerful things I ever seen and I'm a cynic. I'm with Clinton. We're in Aqaba in Jordan, and they're going to sign this historic peace agreement. President Clinton's in the middle. There's King Hussein and Yitzhak Rabin, the prime minister of Israel. And the Israeli head of their Israeli Defense Forces, their 4 or 5 branches of their military, stood at attention while a Jordanian national anthem is being played. When Israel's national anthem, Hatikvah, is played, the Jordanian military high command stands at attention in respect. Here's one of the most powerful examples. We are done.
Yeah.
Enough with blood. And the Palestinian, Israel will never, ever see both peace, security, and a promise that the founding fathers that my father was part of, if they don't recognize the aspirations of a people that want their own home. Otherwise, this is going to, and I'll say one other thing as somebody who believes in the promise and the potential of the state of Israel. Last year, for the first time in Israel's history, 78 years, more people left than came. They're voting with their feet. And this prime minister is leading the Jewish people, the most importantly in the state of Israel, into a place where they are more strategically secure, but more politically isolated than they've ever been.
Yeah.
And this guy calls Israel Sparta. You don't have to be a Greek historian expert to know that does not end well.
Yeah.
He has lost the world, and he's about to lose America, and an isolated Israel is wrong. You have got to figure out how to find a partner for peace, and they're ready first time to do that. Now you got to grab their hand.
You think we are in Iran because he's trying to cover his ass?
Well, everybody says that. Jimmy, look, the reason I reject that is because it takes Trump out of the agency of being the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief. You make a decision. Prime Minister Netanyahu's been shopping that idea of this military action to Joe Biden, who said no. To Trump 1, who said no. To Barack Obama, who said no. To George Bush, who said no. I can't remember if he ever took it to Bill Clinton. So every president has said this plan has been shopped for 5 presidents. So do I think he said this is what I think is good? No, I think he made a horrible strategic mistake, told the President Trump in 2015 to pull out of the agreement that President Obama has in 2015, which was, again, a 51-49. But in the end of the day, the equities are in 51, the negatives are in 49. There were problems with it, but welcome to compromise. So do I think he has pushed this? Yeah. Do I think every other president said no? Yeah. And I'm not taking President Trump off the hook. Like, he doesn't have agency. He is the president of the most powerful military, most powerful country. He's the commander-in-chief. He is responsible. When you're in the Oval Office, there are two decisions that come to that office: bad and worse. And you have to have the judgment, the character, the knowledge, the insight, and the inquisitive to know the difference between bad and worse. And you don't get it right all the time. So I don't take this president and give him a pass on what he did. No way.
Yep. What do you think in terms of the battle right now? There's, you can go on social media right now, and there's so much, there's the AIPAC trackers, and there's the this and the that in terms of the Democratic Party. What's your take on that stuff right now?
You know what I find weird? Now, look, I'm not a fan of AIPAC. I'm not a fan that they took out a congressman in New Jersey who had a quote unquote 90% good record to elect somebody who has a 100% negative record. Like, that's a weird way to build coalitions. Okay? Like, I don't know if you know this. Coalitions are about people with differences working together.
Yeah.
So what I want is our party is supposed to have an inclusive culture, not an exclusive. AIPAC is embarked on this bad, if I'm not I'll just say stupid political strategy. And I don't care which race you won here versus which race you won there. This is a nuts strategy because you're not making friends.
No.
And I also put this at the foot of the prime minister. This shows you I never forget. He decides to speak to the Congress and goes to John Boehner and doesn't go through the executive branch around Obama. He would have done that to no other president. And and everybody knew then, you're making Israel going back, I think. The speech it's got to be before 2016. So I think it's 2016 after the 2015 agreement with Iran. Back then, if you go back and pull it and Google it, everybody said you're making Israel a partisan political issue. And that's exactly what starts a decade ago. And
right.
So where we are today, you and I have done this. You've been to Israel. You've been on trips with Jim Clyburn. This is what he started. And I lay this at his feet. And this is not, and he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room.
Well, I know.
And he has made this, meaning Israel, a toxic issue, both that and other things. So that's what I think.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the party. And
well, we're going to need 3, 4, 5 podcasts on this one, man.
I know. I want to stress test your arguments a little bit. You've said that the Democratic Party has become weak and woke and intellectually flabby.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in real terms? Now, some people say if Democrats focus all their energy on the middle, does that mean that they risk losing the energy of the base? Or can they do both?
Well, here, let me ask you.
Is it either or?
No, I think that's a false choice.
Yes.
Okay. I'm the first city. You got to be average. We made community college free. First city to do it. Is that center or base? I don't know. It's forward is what I think. Okay? Because I've said to you, if you got to be average, your parents don't have to pay for the first 2 years of college.
Yeah.
I'll make it free. I created universal kindergarten, universal pre-K. Base or middle? No, it's forward, not backwards. We did a minimum wage and raised it along with inflation. Base or moving forward? I don't get it. I think it's really, now, there are other issues, you can say, but the fact is, if 50% of the country is self-identified as independents, you have to find common cause if you're trying to build a majority. I'm tired of winning one cycle, losing the next cycle.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how do we get a governor majority that moves the country forward.
This is part of the reason why, listen, South Carolina's home, so I'm always going to be from our home. But this is part of the reason why I think South Carolina is so important in the presidential calendar. Unlike some of these other states. And this is, whereas some, folks like to look at where are you on the ideological spectrum, right? Are you, people say, well, liberal, progressive can't win in South Carolina. This is the thing about South Carolina. It is not about where you fit on that spectrum, because our voters here aren't progressive or they aren't moderate conservative. They're pragmatic. and it's the pragmatism which is the thing that drives them, right? So it is not even like, oh, only black candidates can win. Well, Al Sharpton didn't win here in South Carolina when he ran for president, right? Because in the end of the day, the part of the reason why Barack Obama beat Hillary wasn't because he was black. It is, he went to Iowa, proved that, and for pragmatic black folks, they saw, well, I guess a black man can win, a state that is majority. So they are very calculating.
Two things.
Yes.
Okay. One, winning is my ideology.
Yeah.
Everything else,
got to win.
Yeah. After that, it's just a moral speech about the. Two, I actually think it's less ideology and not just pragmatism. I think the real thing, candor and authenticity, are going to have an overvalued currency.
Key.
Now, you've known me now 30 years.
Yes.
Nobody walks away and go, God, that Rahm is subtle. I couldn't figure out what his position was. I'll tell you my position whether you ask me a question.
Whether you like it or not.
And whether you like it or not. But I'm going to tell you what I think it takes to win.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I'm 6 for 6, never lost.
Speaking for 6 for 6, let's talk about your 6 for 26.
Yeah.
I know back when you were over the DCCC, and you and I have talked about this, and I've written a lot about it. I believe that 2006 and 2026 are similar in so many ways.
100%.
It is eerie how similar it is. I mean, even think of the Iran war now and the Iraq war then, right?
So here's the thing. First, structurally, this is a referendum election on them.
Yes, it is.
And you don't want anything to distract from that.
Yeah.
Because the American people are ready to issue their verdict. And even Trump knows.
He knows it.
He's getting a comeuppance like he's never seen.
Yeah.
I don't think he realized how bad it is.
No.
You go around the country, this thing's got a head of steam.
Yeah.
We have to have, and it was more than just, window dressing, but an agenda. Now, I happen to think it's raise the minimum wage, ratepayer bill of rights on utilities, healthcare cost control, social media ban for kids, dealing with these predictive markets where people are making money betting against America, etc. That said, whatever it is, that's what unites the party. Have something about it. I think it's worth 10 to 20% in the election, but 80% of this election, if not more, is about them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 2028, that's a choice election, not a referendum election. And we better have something we can tell people. Tough times require a tough leader to do tough things, and here's where I'm taking it. What I'm excited about on 2028, that's separate than 2026. 2028 will be the first election since Obama 08 where we're going to be debating the future, not the past. You look at Joe Biden's Build Back Better. You look at Donald Trump's MAGA, Make America Great Again. Both of them basically were trying to restore a past that can't come back. We owe the American people a vision of the future and the grit and guts to get that future, make it a reality. We can't afford anymore to have some nostalgic, hazy image of the past that we're going to it's not coming back as that, but we can build something that still is true to the values that kind of influence those choices.
So you've talked about this, and this has been a constant conversation in the party, since President Biden started his run for reelection, but about generational change.
Mm-hmm.
And do you believe that it's time for a new generation? And if you do believe that,
what are you doing?
No, do you believe that you represent that new generation?
So two things. I'm a firm believer. Let me start in the back.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in change. That could either be represented by generation or by strength. Mm-hmm. For a party known as weak, that character.
Yeah.
Nobody ever thought or identifies that quality with me.
That's exactly
right. There's going to be a change. Could be generational. Could also be strength versus weakness. Mm-hmm. That would be different for Democrats. Second, as you know, I've argued, when you hit 75, up and out. Congress, Senate, President, Cabinet, Judiciary. You hit the age of 75, you are done. You're not hitting your prime speed at 78. That is my position. I know it may not be popular with some in South Carolina, but I'm believing in that.
Yeah.
That was a subtle to a good friend of mine. But I firmly believe the Washington is looking like a cheap knockoff of the Soviet Politburo. Stop it. We got to get energy going again.
So you're going to run in 28?
I haven't decided. I guess I think I'm here in South Carolina, listening, explaining. We'll see what people react. That's also true in New Hampshire. That's true in Iowa, Wisconsin, Mississippi, Nevada, places Michigan, I've been.
What's your split? 60-40?
No, I don't. Look, here's the thing. When I first got back from Japan, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'd have said, why would I do that? Kind of in my head now thinking, why wouldn't I? But I haven't. But you know this. You ran.
Yeah.
You know when you make a decision like this, first of all, so you got to be a little crazy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Second, you got to have your head, your heart, and your gut in the same place.
That's exactly
right. And I'm testing that every step of the way.
That's exactly right. How does a Rahm Emanuel win South Carolina?
You stay on this podcast every week until people are so tired of you, they want to kick your butt. And how do you, the primary or the general?
Primary.
Primary. One, you show up. I think if you looked at my schedule today, you would have said that's a pretty, think you don't just go to Charleston and Columbia.
Yeah.
I'm going all over your state.
That's important.
Okay. Two, I want people to lift the hood.
Yeah.
I want them to check the oil. I want them to pull the spark plugs. I want them to move the mirror around. Because part of this is you got to know me, and I got to know you. And so, and the second thing is the point you made, Jaime, that I think is important. It's not ideological. It's pragmatic. It's not about left or right or center. It's about forward or backwards.
Yeah.
And we as a country are living on fumes and idling. And our party has too. Getting this thing focused on the right big things is the most important. Now, one, I'm laid out and I'm going to finish up after the community college with something on BA, but I'm going to have pre-K to BA. Number one is education. Without it, there's no ticket to the middle class. You got to punch that. Two, 4% of everything we do has to go into research and development, life science, quantum, AI, et cetera, because the Chinese are trying to kick our butt in those areas. And we can't give up the great, which means, unlike this president, stop declaring war on the greatest research universities in America. University of South Carolina has a great research apparatus. It is the companies of tomorrow. 3, the Dignity Act and immigration. It respects that we're a nation of laws not to be broken, and we're a nation of immigrants to keep the American dream fresh and alive. 4, a tax code that doesn't preserve wealth, but creates wealth. We have a tax code that I get a reward if I give my kids, or rather a break, if I give my kids money. No, you go out and work. You got 2 things that are irreplaceable. You have a good, loving family and a good education. The rest is up to you.
Yeah.
But we have a tax code that's about preserving wealth rather than creating wealth. It's got its policies all upside down. So fix that. 5th, make sure that we have both the energy infrastructure and the digital economy, where we have the infrastructure of the 21st century for a 21st century economy, not the 20th. China adopted Barack Obama's all of the above, and they're kicking our butt on energy. We went heavy and put our thumb scales, and I'm for natural gas as a piece of the portfolio. But what about small nuclear? What about geothermal? What about battery storage where families can make money putting energy back into the system? We have lost our nerve. So get the energy right, get the tax code right, get immigration right, get research and development for the future small businesses and startups, and educate Americans so they can compete and win. That's how you grow this economy. And we got to start growing again. I'm done with treading water.
I agree with you. So what do you say to, black person in South Carolina, like, I like all those things that Rahm was saying,
but I hate him.
No. But my cousin that's in Chicago, was upset with him because of how the police did Laquan McDonald. Like, what is your answer to that person? It's like, I like what you're saying in terms of policy.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
But the vibe I'm getting from my folks up there.
So, one is look, as I said when I was confirmed in the Senate, etc. Or I should probably start in the back. Laquan McDonald's uncle is Pastor Martin. Wrote a letter of support for me. We got it. I own it. I said it then. It happened on my watch. I got to fix it. Now, to be fair, Jamie, I thought I fixed it beforehand. And the problems are deeper and more ingrained than I actually fully appreciate.
Yeah.
That's on me. I own it. Unlike others, I addressed the city as a whole at city council, and then I went about systematically fixing it. But there was clearly, I gave confidence to people that I shouldn't have. I should have been asking questions when I didn't. There's nobody else. You're the mayor. That's on me. But I didn't run away from it. I owned the mistake. And there's a letter by the inspector general said, the problem is I did everything right, by the book, in a sense, right. And the book was just not written right for what we were facing. So, as you well know, in the executive branch, you don't get a do-over. You get lessons learned and apply them forward.
Yeah.
And that's what I got. And the good news for me, or not for me, but the good news, after a lot of soul searching, but also discussion with Pastor Martin, who texts me every week. We talk all the time. Laquan's uncle supported not only my candidacy, he supports what I'm doing. And so I've earned that, and I have to earn it every day. And just like you, when you make a mistake, the most important thing when you stumble, you fall, what did you learn about yourself, and what did you learn applying forward? You don't get a do-over. Only a congressman gets to vote twice on the same subject. But I'm serious about that. And so, look, I did some, I'll bring it up. You didn't bring it up. I'm proud of my education record. I'm proud of what we accomplished. I gave you reading scores, math scores. Short and Raider and Stanford calls the single best system in the country. I closed 50 schools. It also brought up, if you're talking to that same person, okay. Now, here's what I think. Would my life been easier if I left those schools open? I'd have no protesters at my kids' school. They used to hold signs outside. My kids go, your dad's a jerk, your dad's my kids want to go out there. We agree. Our dad's a jerk. Oh, but my life would have been easier. Those kids' lives would have been worse. I could have left them in the failure. I could have left them like others. Just sit there. A school for 800's down to 180. If you want somebody that knows how to husband their political capital and not spend it, don't support me. I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not that guy. So I made a decision. Could there have been things I could have done different? Yes. In the end of the day, it was better to give kids a better school 8 blocks away in their neighborhood than let them wallow in the schools that are failing. Now, for everybody that's made politics out of, he did this, he did that. They haven't opened one. Not one school's been open. So it was painful. The city went through very big trauma. 2 years later, I got reelected. That's one benchmark. Our graduations all 8 years grew. Our reading and math scores grew to where the kids of the city of Chicago were 7 months, I think that's what Sean Ritter said, or 6 months ahead of their peers across the country. If you want status quo, I am not your guy.
A disruptor. Change maker.
Let me ask you a question, Jimmy.
Yeah.
You think we can keep treading?
No, we can't.
You think we can live off fumes?
No.
Okay.
No.
I get that. Look, there are things, everything you do in life, you learn something, both the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've made my fair share of mistakes. I'll own those mistakes.
You've had almost every job in politics. Which has been your favorite?
Oh, well, first let me say, I'll answer. The top answer to your question is mayor. Because in Chicago, you're the alpha dog, etc. But I've learned everything in every job. But I'll also in every job, I've learned a tremendous amount. I am happy having been chief of staff, congressman, senior advisor to President Clinton before being mayor. But in retrospect, I think I would have been a better chief of staff, not that I don't think I was good, had I been mayor before chief of staff, because I would have seen the office from the other end on the receiving end. And I think knowing that gives you a perspective that is not always, it's just a different view of the world when you're where I like to say mayors are, the reason they're important is that's where people live, work, and play.
Yeah.
In Columbia, in Charleston, in Spartanburg, in Greenville. That is where they live, work, and play. And knowing a government that's closest to the front door and the back door is really informative to how understanding why Washington looks and feels like Disneyland on the Potomac, because they have lost contact with that kind of thread.
Any major regret from your time as chief of staff? Anything you wish you could have had it done?
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, to President Obama's credit, we can have our disagreements, and I let him know, etc.
Yeah.
But that's his presidency, not mine.
Yeah.
There are things, for my mayorship, etc. But I would, he and I had this, as others did, we had this big debate about financial. Obama used to say, I have 3 kids: healthcare, financial reform, cap and trade. And he said, my favorite child is healthcare. That's true. I wanted to do financial reform first because I thought the battle against banks would have been good economics and good politics. So we did get universal health care. We did get pre-existing condition. We also got the Tea Party.
Yeah.
And that's like that. You know what? As my dad used to say, that's how the ball bounces.
Yeah, it does. So we end every show with one question, which is, and you've built a career on being, and people have seen from this podcast, you're direct, you're tough, you're unapologetic. Who is your recipient for this very special honor that we give? We call it the Sit Your Ass Down Award. So there's somebody that you can say it's time for you to be quiet, go to corner, sit down, collect yourself, just shut the hell up. Who is your recipient of the Sit Your Ass Down Award?
Me. Sit down, listen a little better. My Amy thinks I got to work on that anyway, so I'm going to get, look, this, Jamie. All your strengths are your weaknesses.
Yeah. Yep.
Do I have an answer? Yeah. Have I been around in all these titles and jobs and learned a lot? Yeah. Sometimes I need to, I jokingly, when we were going to have Amy wanted to have a 4th child, she said, I'm going to name it Patience, so you get a daily reminder. and I told her, let me just tell you one thing about patience. It's a waste of time. So I would say myself, sit down, shut up, listen a little more.
Well, Rahm, listen, again, we've known each other almost 30 years. And in that time, I can say, and you can't say this about everybody, you haven't changed. You are the same person. You're driven. You're passionate about what you're passionate about. You're focused on it. And you're unapologetic about it, right? And I believe in your heart of heart that you want to do good.
Thanks, Jamie.
Whether you like him or not, Rahm Emanuel is someone who is driven by his values and about trying to make this country a better place. So
thanks, man. It's been great.
It's been great to have you at our table. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be at this table. I like to see you survive the Emanuel dinner table.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I need to bring a helmet or something.
Try shoulder pads.
If you enjoyed today's show, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pixel Plus, or anywhere you find your podcasts. For bonus content and analysis, join our community on Substack at jamieharrison.substack.com. At Our Table with Jamie Harrison is a production of Vision Blue Media. Our founding executive producers are Jason Hyder and Jamie Harrison. Our producer is Kyle Kelly. Our content consultants are Ernie Grigg and Clay Middleton. Our digital communications are led by Lauren Brown. Our social media strategist is Nia Asanta. Inez Smolasky provides production legal. Title sequence by Tom Hunt. Our theme song, Blonde Gone, is written by Dewey and published by Alibi Music Library. Very special thanks to Rahm Emanuel and his team. I'm Jamie Harrison, and I look forward to another conversation at our table.